his realization that he was a bisexual.
Oh.
When he got back to Cambridge, he pursued multiple sexual partners and eventually entered into a relationship with the head of the Cambridge Footlights Dramatic Club, but that relationship ended because his partner did not share his interest in Western esotericism.
If that happened these days, everybody would be not dating. Because if there was like one opposite thing that they had, nope, we're not dating anymore, no.
Well, okay, but religion is a pretty basic thing. And while it can be got over, if two people love each other and can compartmentalize it, even to this day, a lot of people can't. Like, there are Catholic families that will not accept their children marrying non-Catholics. There are Jewish families that won't accept their children marrying non-Jews.
Oh.
So it's still kind of a thing, but yes, it has relaxed quite a bit since his day. Also, at the time, the study and worship of the occult was really considered out there. So for his partner to not be interested in that and not be supportive in that was probably a big thing to him.
Right. I was thinking you said a whole different thing, like a chess club thing.
Well,
religions, I don't mind. Religions are fine.
Well, no, the guy he was with, the guy he quite liked, was the head of Cambridge Footlights Dramatic Club, not the chess club. Mm-hmm. And which basically that guy was in charge of putting on dramatic plays at the college.
Right.
And yeah, it didn't work out because of Aleister's interest in esotericism at the time.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Now, it was around that time Aleister caught syphilis, probably from a prostitute. It also should be...
What's syphilis?
It is a sexually transmitted disease.
Oh, okay.
It should also be noted that same-sex relationships at that time were quite illegal. Both in Britain, illegal. Both in Britain.
I'll be in jail.
Both in Britain and the USA.
Not all of us, but most of us. Love it.
Now, shortly afterwards, in 1897, he visited Russia, claiming he wanted to learn Russian because he was considering a diplomatic career there. Shortly afterwards, he became quite ill, and he decided he should focus on the occult. He bought 2 books on the occult and began to publish his poetry. He joined the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and trained in ceremonial magic. He married Rose Edith Kelly and honeymooned in Cairo, Egypt, where he claimed a supernatural entity named Iwas, and that's spelled Aiwass, so I'm probably mispronouncing it. But Iwas contacted him and provided him with the Book of the Law, a sacred magical text that he published, and it served as a basis for his religion, Thelema. He later became a member of the Ordo Templi Orientis, rising to the president of their British chapter. He reorganized it in accordance with his Thelemic beliefs. During World War I, he went to the United States, where he took up painting and campaigned for the German war effort against Britain, later revealing he had infiltrated the pro-German movement to assist the British Intelligence Service. Crowley gained notoriety during his lifetime for his recreational drug use, his bisexuality, his being an individualist social critic, and his occult beliefs. The British press dubbed him at one time the wickedest man in the world, and he died, as my friend Emery would say, hopped up on goofballs seeing Jesus. He was actually taking more heroin, I believe, at that point than most people can and live. Taking more of it on a daily basis than most people can and survive. But heroin is one of those drugs that the more you take, the more you need, and up to a certain point, it no longer becomes lethal to you. Very bad drug. So, let's take a moment for a word from our sponsors before we get into anything else. Unless you have any questions about anything you heard at that point. Like I said, I cut out a lot. His life he did so much. And he went so many places.
Like you said, we'd be here for 3 days.
Yeah, well, we'd be here for there'd be 3 episodes on Aleister Crowley, and I think he's interesting, but I don't think he's that interesting. Let's take a moment for a word from our sponsors. If you hear what you think is a monkey, that is not actually a monkey. That is our daughter Lexi, and she is talking to her sisters in the other room.
I can be a monkey.
But last week when she was talking, it didn't get picked up by the microphone, so I doubt it does this week. But just in case,
I can be a monkey.
You can be a monkey.
Yeah.
You are a monkey quite a lot of the time, but okay. So, now, Krysta, do you know about Loch Ness?
No.
Have you ever heard of the Loch Ness Monster?
Yes.
Okay, Loch is a Scottish word, and it means lake.
Ooh. Scottish.
Yes.
Their words are fancy.
Their words are fancy. Now, Ness is in this case kind of short for Inverness, which is where it's located, which is an area in Scotland. Anyway, Crowley bought a house just off of the loch in Loch Ness called Boleskin House. Boleskine. Boleskin House. His nearest neighbors were 8 miles away. He bought the house specifically because of
Loch Ness Monster?
No. Although he might have believed in it. He certainly seems the type. But he bought it specifically because of its remoteness.
Yeah.
It was at this point he spent a lot of time involved in a 6-month ritual that he alternately referred to as an attempt to summon a guardian angel to gain enlightenment, or an attempt to summon Satan himself because Crowley wanted to speak to him personally and become his chief of staff.
I see. Well, everybody needs to have goals.
Yes, well, yep. that was one of his. He wasn't. He said in an interview he was never a Satanist in the traditional sense. He didn't want to worship Satan and as a deity. Rather, he wanted to call him up on the phone and interview for his chief of staff. So.
I see.
But what is known is that this ritual was a 6-month-long ritual. And in the middle of it, he was called away to Paris all of a sudden. So he never finished it.
I see.
Well, as part of the ritual, because it comes from a book, The Magic of Abramelin the Mage, as part of the ritual was involved in summoning these demons.
Uh-huh.
And so a lot of people believe that because he left and never finished the ritual, that the house was full of these demons that he never banished. Certainly the people who've lived there afterwards have experienced a lot of strange things. Now, there are some who even claim that the demon is Pazuzu, which I'm not even supposed to mention his name, so we'll probably all be cursed, but...
Oh, no, what? Why? Isn't our luck crappy enough already? What's wrong with you? Yeah.
Well, okay. The people who tell you that will also tell you that he was supposedly Satan. And if you watch the movie The Exorcist, they kind of sell that, but it's not. He was a Sumerian devil, basically, that controlled all the demons of the wind. That's who he was. So I doubt Pazuzu is doing anything anymore. Although he probably likes his name mentioned. Yes. Remind people I used to exist.
Mm.
The hauntings here at Boleskin House are well documented. People claim to have experienced cold spots, shadow people, mists, apparitions, and vivid and spectacularly bad nightmares.
Mm.
Now, others claim that Crowley is not the reason for the hauntings, but before it was Boleskin House, it was the location of a former church that burned with the congregation inside. And that's where the hauntings come from.
Yeah, gotta do it.
But whatever the case, the hauntings here are well documented. And while the house is pretty much in ruins because it caught fire in I want to say the 90s, and then someone had set it on fire again a few years later. Led Zeppelin co-founder Jimmy Page bought Boleskin in 1971, and part of the band's film, The Song Remains the Same, was filmed on the grounds of Boleskin House.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who were there report lots of bad stuff going on at the time. Page sold the house in 1992, and he really doesn't talk much about Boleskin House anymore.
I see.
And there's people who wonder why that is. Now, there are those who claim Crowley wasn't the occultist he pretended to be, but he was in actuality a spy. Some biographers allege that he was recruited into the British Intelligence Agency when he was in college. A further suggestion that he remained a spy throughout his life, that he was a double agent infiltrating groups like Golden Dawn and the OTO and these other groups that he was a part of.
So he would be like cross between
James Bond
and
Charles Manson? Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, something like that.
Now, many authors claim that his constant travel had less to do with his mountaineering pursuits than it had to do with him serving as a double agent, much the way he seemed to be one in the U.S. during World War I. In fact, during World War II, it is known that he reached out to the Germans to offer to be a spy against the British. Now, Germany did not accept his request. In fact, he didn't comment on it, but they think that that was part of his cover, was this anti-British guy. So he goes and allies himself with the nation's enemies and then reports back everything to the British. So he's kind of like this double agent, whereas what they used to call an agent provocateur.
I see.
I don't know if that's true, but if so, he was brilliant at it because only a few authors put that together. Now, something else that people talk about where Crowley is concerned is that there is a theory that he was responsible for many of the deaths surrounding the discovery of King Tut's tomb. That King Tut's curse wasn't a curse, but it was the result of Aleister Crowley murdering people or arranging for them to be murdered. Mark Bainan drew on previously unpublished evidence to conclude the occultist masterminded a series of ritualistic killings in revenge for the British archaeologist Howard Carter's opening of the Boy King's tomb. Because, according to these people, his identity was wrapped up in Thelema, and Thelema was a product of Egyptian thought. It was a reworking of the study of Horus. The Egyptian, I believe Horus was, his symbol was the hawk. He might have been a sun god. I'm not entirely sure.
You're way above and beyond anything I'm familiar with. So yeah, well, you guys can you guys can definitely correct us on that. We'd appreciate, some extra added input.
But his victims, if we believe Bainan, included Carter's personal secretary, Captain Richard Bethel, who was found smothered to death at an exclusive Mayfair club, and Bethel's father, Lord Westbury, who plunged 7 floors to his death from a St. James apartment, where he reportedly kept tomb artifacts. Other victims were said to be Sir Ernest Budge, a former keeper in the British Museum's Department of Egyptian and Assyrian Antiquities, found dead in his bed in Bloomsbury, and Ali Kamal Fahmy Bey, a 23-year-old Egyptian prince shot dead by his wife, Mary Marguerite, in the Savoy Hotel shortly after he was photographed visiting King Tut's tomb. Bainan says Crowley and Marie Marguerite had been lovers, and Crowley